Welcome to the Total Acre Podcast. I'm your host, C.R. Siebold. This podcast is all about helping growers unlock their potential. We aim to bring listeners agronomic insights, valuable educational interviews, real-world strategies that optimize yield and maximize ROI. This show is going to explore innovative practices, creative strategies, and breakthrough products with people that are shaping the industry, all through engaging and inspiring stories. Who better to learn from than the legendary world champion David Hula, Randy Dowdy, and Alex Harrell? Because in farming and in life, iron always sharpens iron. And the best way to grow or get better is to continually be learning, networking with peers, have access to industry leaders, and the tools, tips, and tricks, and overall quality of information. Knowledge is power. Tune in, hit play. Let's unlock your farm's potential together. Hey, y'all, Chad Siebold here with Total Acre. Excited for a unique opportunity to have kind of a different story. We've got our vendors and our members here with us together. And listen, we've got Growth Technologies here out of Grand Island, Nebraska. We also have a Total Acre member. Listen, Brett Meyer, you've been with Total Acre for now 2 years. And the unique setup of this is kind of how the whole world goes around, Joana.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we brought Brett Meyer on because he is a client, a customer of ours for Nitromag, and now he's turned into an agent because he loves Nitromag so much, and he's a Total Acre member. So he is one of our celebrity stars. We also have Bart. He's one of our account managers for Growth Technologies, and he's been looking into Nitromag, using it, selling it, educating people on it for years. And I do marketing for Growth Technologies, and I'm a former reporter of 30 years in the news, and I've been following these guys around for 3 years telling their story. So thank you for having us on, Chad. We love
this. Is a unique setup, right? Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden we've got from the business standpoint all the way back to the field, which is pretty cool. So from a Total Acre standpoint, a lot of times what we are doing today and what we're going to talk about is it kind of gets brushed underneath the rugs, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at the opportunity for growers to work with vendors, that's a unique opportunity for folks that are within the Total Acre network to be able to do trials. And listen, I think when you look at what Brett's doing with Meyer's Seed as an owner, right, you get a lot of folks knocking on your door saying, hey, try this, do this. Oh, yeah. One of the unique things within Total Acre, you kind of get a chance to prove it and then put it into play.
Absolutely. No, that's what I love about Total Acre. So I got invited a couple years ago to the first meeting in Lincoln. And, of course, I got to meet David Hula. That's pretty much says it all right there. You know, the Larry Bird of corn. There's nobody better. Such a nice guy and stuff. And we just hit it off really well. And I loved Larson's and all them guys back there in Lincoln. And we decided to join right then and there. So
that's cool. Yeah, I like the Larry Bird analogy. Is that because David can't dunk, but he can shoot? Is that what you're saying?
Just because he's the best at what he does.
I love it. I love it. Well, and speaking of that, when you start looking at different products that are in the marketplace, right, how do you get better every day? And I think one of the things that Growth Technology does, Bart, is, listen, never getting stagnant, right, with technology and innovating. When you look at a product like Nitromag, which is one of your flagship products, you're really looking at a liquid fertilizer, an NH2 and a magnesium type product. It's been out for a little while, but you're always tweaking.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, when we went down the path with melted urea, and then we started to the process, a heated process to make a whole new molecular structure with magnesium chloride and boron. I mean, it really was a new and innovative product to go out in the country to bring to growers, and we really saw a great response to it, and so that's where it kind of started from. And I know Joana will kind of talk a little bit about the kind of where it started, kind of where the initial part of it of Nitromag and with Marcus Dennis and his invention of it. And so, but I think it's a fantastic story. So Joana, if this is the time to talk about that for a second, would be fantastic, I think. So.
I don't know, Chad. You want me to jump in?
Well, listen, I'm telling you, you're stealing my thunder because this is one of the fun stories. And when I look at like continual improvement, right? So it doesn't matter if you're a producer and you're in your shop and you're welding and duct tape and baling wire and building stuff. The story that where this product kind of was built in a garage, right? Yeah. Joanna, I don't want to steal your thunder there, but talk a little bit about the back end of this thing, where the product kind of started and kind of where we're at today. We'll get to that.
So Mark Dennis is the creator of Nitromag. Love that man. I followed him around for an entire summer learning about Nitromag in the fields. I continue to interview him and all the guys at Growth Technologies. But he had an aha light bulb moment in his garage, grabbed his wife's blender from the kitchen, like he ran into the kitchen, brought it in, starts mixing. And he starts mixing and putting it in the freezer, putting it in the refrigerator. And he's thinking, this isn't going to work. And it proved him wrong every day. It worked every single day. And so it's evolved to this product that is simply amazing. It went from that blender, and then he started testing it with the top growers in Nebraska. We went to a yard in Hastings. It was our first yard. And the owner of our company, Jeremy Henderson, would just camp out there 12 hours a day, making sure that this blender was mixing. That's how we produced our first batch of fertilizer and sending it out. And then, we're in Grand Island now, a multi-million-dollar facility. It is capable of producing 20 million gallons of Nitromag. But I want to really hand it over to Brett and Bart, because the beauty of Nitromag is the science. And Bart's going to get into this, but the stabilized melted urea, that is a phrase that Marcus Dennis started. And we've been pushing it, and it's catching on. We just did a post on all of our social media channels last week with what is stabilized melted urea, and that's what makes Nitromag truly special. So great story. I hope you guys log on to our YouTube channel. It's Growth Tech LLC. Website is growthtechllc.com, but our YouTube channel is Growth Tech LLC. And if you log on there, there's a 6-minute video that tells our whole story. It's really entertaining. So I'm going to hand it over to you guys, because they're really the bread and butter of it.
That's kind of what I wanted to talk about, right? When you look at, the 6-minute video doesn't do it justice, but I want to back up just for a minute. Before you went from a blender to 20 million gallons in the last 30 seconds, right? It took a lot of the guys that are in the dirt. You referenced it, but I want to talk about the evolution of how do you go from something in a blender to 20 million gallons. And I'm going to come back to Brett here. Listen, you and I know as producers, we put a lot of stuff in the field. If it doesn't work, we don't buy it. We might buy it a second year, but we won't buy it a third year for sure. But as long as we know we're working with a company that's able to evolve with us and adjust and adapt, and I think that's what Brian Maddox does really good within Total Acre. Yes. Again, back, Joana, to talk about kind of some of the things we're doing with producers. Maybe, Brett, talk a little bit about that, working with vendors and being able to actually pull trial protocol together and then working with a vendor on the backside.
Well, before I say about that, there's one thing that was really cool about the Commodity Classic in Denver this year. The buzzword down there was melted urea. It was everywhere. And I'm just sitting there listening to all these guys going, wow, you're about 3 years behind the time here, because we're already doing it. These guys are got it already going.
Sure.
And, the thing I love about Total Acre is it's trust but verify. Everything that we do, it doesn't matter what the name of it is, doesn't matter how it works, as long as it does work. And Randy and David have always talked to us about, we just want to know what moves the needle. Well, I tried Nitromag last year. In a year that very few people, we had very poor yields out here. Just the heat, the dry, was just a really bad year in Wyoming. But I ended up winning the NCGA contest with a 290 bushel yield, and it was all on Nitromag. So it turned a lot of heads. And because of that, farmers, they just want to know what the next best thing is, because we're gamblers by nature, right? Sure. We're always out there pushing the envelope. And just because of that, winning that contest, and guys at my field day saying, what is this? And then last year during our field day, we brought Marcus Dennis out here. And if you get to meet Marcus and you start listening to him, he talks about 5 degrees smarter than what we are. So you have to try to farmerize it. But when he got done at our meeting, I thought, well, I don't know how that went. Then all my customers came to me and said, whoa, what is this stuff? This is really different. I've never heard of this before. And now that's turned into a line of trucks out this door right now that we're loading out to customers. As we speak, there's trucks out here loading, going to the field right now.
Brett, I love that. And listen, I met Marcus in unique character, right? And obviously, I think there's a lot to be said about him. And if you haven't had a chance to see the story on him, you have to check it out. It's really cool. I think, Bart, I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think the humble nature of some of the folks within Total Acre is probably pretty evident even in Brett, right?
Right.
Working with producers, talk about that. I want to get into the technology and some of the science, but being able to work with a producer and getting real-time feedback, because knowing where placement is, where does it work best, when is the timing, all that stuff works only if we have producers that can talk to us and really communicate where that actually happens best.
Sure. Yeah. I think that, like what Brett was saying about the melted urea, and when we can start talking about it in the amine form, and we're one of the very few people, I think, the companies that are stabilizing that urea, and we're stabilizing it with a carbon source, and so we can continue with our carbon to nitrogen ratio, and I think that's a real positive thing for some of the future things that maybe we'll get a chance to talk about today. And I think that the more and more we're getting into understanding what that plant's telling us back in terms of sap analysis and doing all the leaf tissue sampling and things like that, and an ongoing process of soil sampling to see what's going on in the soil with melted urea stabilized with, against maybe some other nitrogen sources, and what's changing in that soil profile from, a 0 to 6 to 6 to 12. I mean, there's a lot of things that we see are happening from an efficiency standpoint. And that's coming back from growers that are telling us, not only just Total Acres guys, with some of the guys out here in Western Nebraska that we're working with, but it's also, in Eastern Nebraska to Kansas to, Iowa and all those different locations. I mean, that we're starting to get a little bigger foothold in, and people are giving us that feedback of what they're seeing. And so, and a lot of it's, based on just what they're seeing in the plant health. And I think that's a major thing as we start to move forward, is plant health.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And, when you start looking at, again, I'm not going to get into the tech side because I think that's your guys' game. But when you talk about melted urea, right, one piece that I know for sure that Brian Maddox and the team were looking at was the mag piece, or the mag component, when you're starting to talk about chlorophyll and what that does to a plant. I think that, to me, is one of the kind of hidden gems within the product. Again, not to kind of pump the tires up too much, but that was one thing that we really seen that we were excited about. When you look at, so let's just maybe fast forward back to that 20 million gallons, right? So we went from a blender to 20 million gallons.
Yeah.
Family-owned company, Joana, maybe just talk high level again about, why is it important that we work with producers, with technology, right? We feed the world, right? But also kind of tying back into your mission statement, which I know you have right off the top of your head.
Right here.
Fueling farmers, right, for the future. Right?
Yeah.
How cool is that, right? Like, couldn't have a better mission statement. When you look at producers, if you can't provide solutions, Brett, how quick do we sniff it out?
Yeah, very quick.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a testament to what you guys are able to build. I have not been out to Grand Island yet. I want to see the facility, so I will get out there. I noticed that Bart's wearing that Husker red. So you're going to have anything in Memorial Stadium there at Husker Nation?
Well, we already did some things with the spring game, and so we were supporting the spring game, and so that tells me that for Nebraska football, that's nothing but future is bright. Growth tech is part of that. It's going to be a big thing.
We got to get our Nitro-Man on those jerseys, right? Growth
That's
Technologies on there.
You just need a Husker in right there in the middle, like a helmet right on the top of there. But Brett, I know that probably you're a cowboy, right, out in Wyoming, so you're kind of choking a little bit over there.
Laughing is more no.
We have. What's the N for again? Is that knowledge?
Yeah.
It's actually number one. It's,
okay.
Again, so.
Great.
It's never a great podcast unless we talk sports and football. And, obviously, whenever I do this with Maddox, he's a big Ohio State Buckeye. So he's talking, right? He's got championships. He goes, how many championships you got? Oh, back in 97, huh? Okay. It's a little while ago. Speaking of championships, I want to talk about, we did change within Total Acre. It used to be all about growing champions, right? And now what we talk about is unlocking potential. And when you look at products like Nitromag, that's what it's about, right? The big bushels are gone, right? Like the big gains. And now it's about those incremental, how do we get the 3 to 5s? If you, Bart or Brett, if you guys want to talk about that, it'd be awesome.
That's one of the things that was kind of interesting is we we're going down this path, certainly with the biological side of things. And again, you start talking about those little pieces to the puzzle to make sure it's right. Brett was working on a project himself with some biological stuff. Growth Technologies was working on something as well with a different biological. And now, as we get a chance to talk about where we're both going to go in the future with that, has been an exciting path. And what we saw is coming forward with what's happening with our biologicals with our Nitromag. It's kind of that secret entity here. The carbon source is feeding the biologicals. We're seeing some things actually grow, or not. I shouldn't say they're not dying in the tank. We're not getting off gassing or anything like that, and they'll come out of stasis basically at full pull, if you will, going into the soil. So we're actually growing the biologicals instead of inhibiting the growth coming right out of the chute. And the things that we're contributing it to really is coming down to a carbon source in the nitrogen, and then really a melted urea has got a low EC value versus maybe some other nitrogen sources out there. And so having the salt levels and things like that has been a real positive for us as we're growing the biologicals to really just come out of the chute and starting to see the biologicals work right away.
So Bart plays well with others, is what we're saying there in a short story. There's some things there that.
Yeah. I think it's powered by. I think it's probably the best way to do that, because I think that it works in a lot of different biological systems. Because again, Brett went down a different path from a biological company versus what we were doing, and I think they both of those companies are working well with Nitromag. So as we talk about it, I just think it really is more of a powered by Nitromag or Nitromag sulfur and those kind of things. And so I think it works on pretty much any kind of biological company that's out there.
I love it. Joana, we talk a lot in Total Acre about you can't measure or you can't change what you can't measure, right? And Hula will talk a lot. There's no silver bullets, but you talk about the evolution of a product, right? How do you get better every day? So I coach little girl softball, Brett. It's a nightmare, but I coach little girl softball. And if we can throw just a mile an hour faster and just, one hit every game, right? So incrementally getting better every day. I think that your guys' company, when you start looking at how do we make that product better by looking at other solutions, maybe talk a little bit about that. That's kind of built into the foundation.
Yeah, I'm going to let the guys take care of the science, but Bart was
just looking for partners and looking for opportunities to grow the business.
Exactly. No, exactly. There, we're looking into something new with biologicals. This is completely brand new. I'm so glad we could talk about it on the podcast because it truly is revolutionary. It's cutting edge, and that's what our mission statement is just bringing new science to the field, things that have never existed on the field. And I love that we work with Total Acre. We've done product trials for years. Brian Maddox came out to our fields in Nebraska, walked the fields with us. If you watch that 6-minute video, he is in there and he's talking about our product. It really is a partnership of working with Total Acre, getting the science, getting the backup, getting your feedback, and also, the show that we do every year, the Grower Clinic that we just attended with David Hula and Randy, we get really great feedback from them as well. They are our celebrities. We look at them as Total Acre celebrities. We really do. But it's great when they come out for the crop tours. Randy was out for one of our crop tours, and he was tough. I mean, I was really surprised. I'm like, wow, he was really questioning our guys, Brian French and Marcus Dennis, and it was a great conversation. And that's what I love about Total Acre is that you can come in with this product and, Randy's going to ask you the tough questions. David is going to also. But at the end of the day, if they believe in your product, they're going to back it up. And, we were talking last night, we had a quick meeting before the podcast today. Brett has a great story about the Grower Clinic last year, one of the conversations. I don't know if we can kind of talk about that. I don't know if you mind, Chad.
Sure. We can go down that path for sure. Joana, talking about stories and Brian Maddox, right? He takes the systematic approach to farming, right? So, by the way, Brian has a face for radio. Every time I say that, I get like $100 from somebody else on the team. So I'm going to say it one more time. Brian Maddox has a face for radio. So if you got him on video, that's great. That's $200, guys, right here. But at the end of the day, those stories are everything too. So Brett, can you tell us a little bit about that? The Grower Clinic, just explain what the Grower Clinic is, maybe high level.
Yeah.
Well, the Grower Clinic it's like the Super Bowl for a farmer because you get to meet your idols is the wrong word. But if you meet David Hula and Randy Dowdy and you're not impressed with what they've done, then you shouldn't be there. Okay. That's just the facts. And they're so humble. David's humble. Randy's not humble. Randy just tells it like this. But one of the things was we're doing the clinic and and in the clinic the last 2 days they kick all the vendors out and it's all about nothing but data, real stuff. This is what moved the needle. Okay? They don't care. And that's what I love about them. They're not attached to labels. And when Nitromag came up, Randy asked us in the audience, he said, is anybody using this product? And there was a few of us that raised our hand. And he said, I don't know about a lot about this, but this is a product I think we need to watch out for. And so I told these guys that. Of course, they got all excited because Randy Dowdy's like, hey, we need to be watching this. You know, he's seen it. And I have a little side story for you guys. So some of the greatest achievements we make are by accident. And last year, I had a beautiful field of wheat. My co-op went out. This was doing some dry stuff. They did the circle track on the last pivot track and forgot to fertilize the outside. So I'm up there planting my corn, and I'm like, guys, this is a big mistake. So I'm actually streaming on Nitromag, and I called up Marcus Dennis, which is really great because you call the guy, he answers the phone. Okay, he just picks up the phone because he loves talking to farmers. And I said, hey, what do you think about me streaming some Nitromag right on this wheat? What do you think? And he goes, do it. Do it. You're going to like it. I can produce the yield map right now that shows the green ring around the outside of that wheat field. And I actually showed that at my grower at my field day last year. People are like, what? Are you serious? I said, hey, I don't have to lie. There's the JD Ops. You look at it right there. There's the map.
Sure.
And so
that's awesome.
Guess how much went on wheat around here this year?
I'm sure you might have needed some tankers, right?
Yeah, we did.
Well, I do want to reference that, Total Acre doesn't officially endorse products, right? But at the end of the day, we do have an unbiased approach to where we look at and how we look at. So back to what Joana was saying is we challenge almost everything, right? Including results. And then we say, is it repeatable, right? So, but I think that is the unique opportunity that Brett, you have as a member to look underneath the covers and be able to see those kind of things and be able to adapt, pare down, like Bart was talking about, talk about evolution or the innovation and evolution of what's next, right? And again, I love that we have a product that, that we like and everything's working and everybody's excited, but it's always what's next, right, Bart?
Yeah, I think that, that's the one thing. I love the name Growth Technologies. That's what's exciting about it, is it truly is looking at the new technologies that's coming down the path in agriculture. And, what's changed in the last 5 years, as you know, has just been crazy fast. And when we did the initial testing on the biological things, we decided, we better be able to live it before we talk it. And so we went out and did some trial work last fall on some actually, and it actually came from Brett to, hey, you got to figure this thing out on getting rid of some of this stover. We got to break that stuff down. And so we went to work with that and did some trial work. And we actually increased our available nitrogen from winter to spring here by about 60 pounds of nitrogen by doing some different programs, different products and things like that. And we've actually increased our availability of phosphorus that's been in the soil. And I kind of think about that is I finally got something out of Grandpa when he was putting all that phosphorus down. We're going to finally get to release that. So that's a generation transfer of products. And I think that's fantastic if we can start to release some of those things. And I think that, from what we saw before using our products with the biologicals, I think that process was just a little slower to enact that biologicals to get things to change that fast from fall to spring. So, what I'd always challenge people is to take a look at what happened this year and make some decisions in the fall of what we should be looking at for your ground for next year. And right down to, as we've talked about, humic acids, just all those different things. What can we incorporate into my ground that's going to make it a little more efficient and more alive to be able to capture some of the nutrients that's in the ground.
I love it. And I think that is right. I mean, the kind of, I don't know, Brett, we hear it all the time. We get a chance to see some stuff that folks will say, we're trying to make things more plant available. Well, everybody's doing that, right? It's right. Every product known to man, right? But having that in a pitch is just kind of like a standard protocol. But ones that can do that and then measure that, it's super important, right? More than just yield. Obviously, yield is, and you'll hear Dowdy talk about that, right? And Joana, if you talk about the challenges, that's great. You got tissue samples, but what did it yield? And did you take everything back to yield, right? So I think one thing that I guess, and I'll throw this out to the group, whoever wants to answer it. When you talk about results, right? And whatever those results are, how you measured them, can they consistently be there? And then can we do it year over year, right? And I think that's right. That's the magic button. Anybody can do it 1 year, but how do we do it consistently?
Yeah.
Whoever wants to take that.
I'll tackle that one as a grower because, we farm out here in Wyoming. Eastern Wyoming has a very unique set of challenges that a lot of places in the Corn Belt would not understand. We actually laugh at a lot of the farmers back east, like, come out here so we can work with you on how to farm, because we do it 365. It's always a challenge.
Mhm.
But the biggest thing is efficiency, because right now one of the things we're getting challenged with is leaching nitrogen.
Mhm.
And the NRD offices out here and stuff. This is gonna, I mean, they're gonna come to us with the carrot, then it's gonna be the stick. So we need to start taking approaches to this now. And one of the things, like the field that I did last year with Nitromag, I was down to 0.9 units of N to produce 290 bushels of corn. And to me, that means more dollars in my pocket. And in the end, isn't that what this is all about? It's about making a living. And if you're not netting money, you're not staying in business.
That's right.
And then I have many, many customers with my seed agency, and that's all they care about. They're like, what's next? And one of the slogans I tell all of them guys is, I am no smarter than anybody in the room. I'm just in contact with people who are. I try to bring the east to the west.
Oh.
And it's through Total Acre, it's through Nitro-Mag, it's through these companies that, I mean, we out here, nobody's coming to Wyoming for test results, guys. Okay?
Right.
You know,
right.
It's just,
I love it.
yeah.
And Brett, I mean, you know, we've known each other for a little while now, but your network is as strong as anybody that I've seen when you start looking east to west. And whether it's the Idaho, California market or the Delmarva down to Texas, you've got folks that have tried and worked with. And so when you talk about proven solutions, it is a testament to, hey, I'm not up here just saying a product works and I really like it because I'm an agent of that product, right? At the end of the day, finding solutions for farmers, it has to, what's the name? ROI, right? It has to have some sort of an ROI. If we don't have an ROI, then guess what? We're not going to farm next year, the year next. So it's a super big piece of the puzzle. Back to the systematic approach, right? Innovation. When we look at what's coming in the pipe, you mentioned a little bit, we pair wells with others, you know, like just the simple thing on mixability, right? So we went from a garage to in a blender to 20 million gallons. You know, maybe just talk a little bit about the tech for the guys. Maybe we skipped over some of that stuff, application rate, and then in terms of what we mix well with and timing.
Sure. Yeah, I think that well, going from where we started, you know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I think Joana and I started about 3 years ago, and the expansion has been crazy. So that's the one thing. I think the one thing that the nitrogen can the Nitromag sulfur products, or just the Nitromag heavy, we call it, is it can be used just as a complete replacement for any other nitrogen program. So we can go strip till, in furrow, 2x2 through the pivots. When we got started, a lot of it was done through the pivots, at a 30 gallon per acre rate, split applied 3, maybe 4 times, and just for that nitrogen efficiency. And that's really where we kind of started from, was through the pivots. And as we've kind of evolved and starting to get more numbers in and understanding what the products can do, we're seeing a lot more through the strip till and through, and really, I like the wide drop. I sure enjoy seeing the wide drops going on out there. It's a very efficient way to apply the nitrogen, and where it works with a lot of the other ingredients. We have other micronutrients that we use that are stabilized with a natural chelation, and that mixes well with our products. So there's just a multifaceted of different things that we can blend in with the products at our plant today that just 2 years ago we weren't able to do until we got the Grand Island plant up and running, to where we can do almost pretty much a custom mix, if you will, with the baseline being Nitromag or Nitromag S sulfur products, or KS, potassium sulfur.
That's very helpful. Thanks for the explanation on that. And now we talk about yield potential, right? And yield goals, Brett. And we do that a lot, right? When we're working inside of YMS with Total Acre, we say, hey, we've got a target of, maybe not everybody's growing 290 bushel corn in Iowa, let alone Wyoming.
Right.
But after we set a target of, right, and then we circle that target and we start kind of building a plan, right, now all of a sudden we get hit in the face, right? And you got opportunities to apply different times throughout the season, which is nice. I know here, back in Ohio where Maddox is at, like they didn't get a crop in till late, right? All that nitrogen went out early. So what do you suggest, Brett? If you're out there, what is the best timing to be able to, make that application? Is it up early? Is it, in season? Is it late season? What do you like?
We split applications. The more times you apply, the more efficient you are. Period. End of story. Like we go in with 20 gallon in the strip till. Then we come out, we go in with the strip till early. We plant right in there. We go about 3 inches below the seed. We've had no problem. They told us that you might watch the boron levels in the Nitromag, the competitors. We've had no problem. And our boron levels are out of the chart in our tissue samples. Then we come back in and we're Y dropping on 40 gallon right now. And then that's with all Nitromag S because we need a lot of sulfur out here. And so then Marcus convinced me last year, we come out with Nitromag K, which has got potassium in it. And that's what we'll put in when we get to that brown silk. Because we got to go for what does David all talk to us about is kernel fill. We got to have that deep, dark, big kernels.
Right.
And last year, that corn that won that contest weighed 64 pounds.
Wow.
And they did it twice at the elevator. They said, we've never had it weigh that heavy before. And
that's awesome. 56-pound test weight versus, what did you say, 64?
64 is what it was.
That'll do for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, high efficiency of fertilizer getting to the plant, right? That's certainly an opportunity for us to optimize yields. Are you so let's talk challenges, right? So in a wet year where an anhydrous guy maybe loses it, right? I mean, shoot, I just heard Grand Island had 6 inches of rain, I think, over the last 2 days, right?
Yeah.
We're sitting on 3.5. So if it were earlier on in the season, I know there's not a lot of anhydrous guys out there, but there's still a lot of guys out that are doing that up front. If we lose it, an opportunity to be able to get out in season and make that in furrow pass potentially. But I think the other thing that I really like, and Bart, you mentioned it. So give me, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. Instead of going down that path, I want to go down a different path of MAP-DAP-MES, right? So you're seeing some ancillary benefits by making the plant nutrients more available other than what you're talking about with just a nitrogen and a mag. So whether or not that's measurable, I don't know, right, Bart? But maybe talk a little bit more about that. You're seeing some enhanced uptake of different nutrients.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is that we're unlocking some of those nutrients that are out there in that soil today, and of course, as anything, the most important thing is to monitor and test and react, and we're seeing, just taking a boron as for instance, the boron that's in the Nitromag S or Nitromag products is a natural metallic boron, so it's naturally in our product. It's not an additive at this point, and so I think it goes systemic a lot quicker, so we don't see that deficiency in boron. And I think that's probably what we've seen across the board when people are looking at their boron levels. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And I think that, we always say that the healthier the plant, of course, the more efficient it's going to be. And I think anytime we can capture what God's given us is the sunlight. And I think the photosynthesis and just that nutrient uptake goes with the photosynthesis. And I think anything that we can do to enhance that is going to be in our favor. And I think that's a big win for us, is when we can measure the amount of chlorophyll that's in the leaves, but it always comes down to, we got to continue to monitor it and make a decision as we go. And I think we're learning more about that monitoring and making those decisions quicker.
And then that's kind of the nuts and bolts of my next question to you, Brett. Like we talk about limiting factor a lot, right? Within YMS, within Total Acre, we have NPR, Nutrient Power Rankings, which is a really cool tool that as long as you're sending in your tissue samples, we can see. Now I know that's a snapshot in time, right? It's not predictive, but at the end of the day, we get a baseline of how we're doing. And now all of a sudden, Brett, can you talk to me a little bit about if we've got melted urea, we've got Nitromag out there, we've got our guy, right? We got our decal up. He's pumping in. What I like to see is those tissue samples coming in, and then we can identify that limiting factor. What are you seeing on some of the fields? What was your limiting factor, for example, on that 290? What did you see post-mortem?
My limiting factor on the 290 was weather.
Okay.
The tissue samples came in perfect at the end. So we start off this year right now. One of the things Bart talked about was pairing it up with some micronutrients. Well, we are very iron deficient out here. So I said, well, we're going to use this iron. Marcus has this iron encased in fulvic acid. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, it won't work out here. Your pHs are too high. It's going to tie up. I said, well, Marcus says it'll work. All my tissue samples came in 250 to 300 on iron this year. I'm way off the charts. And I said, well, I think Marcus just proved all them wrong. And then our boron levels are high. And the one thing that's really high that we're great on that nobody else can achieve is our magnesium levels. Because you just don't have a source of magnesium. It's not something you put a lot on. Yeah. Well, it's already in the Nitromag. So my field guys, like, that's incredible. I can't believe you have that much mag in your soil.
And that trace amount that the plant can use versus what's available, right? And then how do we make it more available? I think that, some of those things are hard to measure, but if we're turning that into yield, something's happening. The geek in me, the ag geek in me wants to know exactly what's happening, right? I'm sure Marcus knows, and there's a few others, but ultimately, if you have that perfect scenario where things are being optimized and it equates to yield, that's kind of that start to finish that Dowdy's looking for, right? There's some little things in the middle that we're trying to figure out, right? It's no different than, we talk about soil health, we talk about plant, metabolism, but we talk about our bodies. We're starting to just understand how our bodies metabolize nutrients, right? Let alone plants. But I think it's a testament to what you're doing out there, Brett, in Wyoming. And I know you've got some colleagues across the country that you would probably thank. But at the end of the day, you're the guy that's on the screen here. So I love what you're doing. And Bart, I'm going to tell you right now, Husker Nation, you're going to have to kick him out there. I haven't seen it. I guess you had a quarterback back in the day in Wyoming, but like Husker Nation's, they're taking on fans, Brett.
Well, Chad, he was pretty upset that he didn't get a Husker red hat today for this call.
He was.
So
yes.
It's kind of coming around. It's kind of coming around.
Wyoming's back to their old form, not doing very good right now. So we're waiting for another Josh Allen to come into play. And
never say never.
But hey, you know what? I am a Husker fan. It's just to the volleyball program.
There you go. Shout out to the girls. Absolutely.
And they are awesome.
They're do love
Nitro-Mag of volleyball.
Right?
That'll stick to the tape.
You got the muscle.
That's right. You need a lady version of that too, where it's a little toned down but still jacked, right?
Right.
For my Husker volleyball girls, for sure.
We'll
now,
work on that, Chad.
Talk about winning championships. That's what those girls are doing all day, every day. It's fun to watch. We've talked about some really cool stuff today, but if they maybe kind of the listening group is kind of jumping around and maybe they're out in the cab, what's maybe one thing, Bart, is you're kind of high level, what's the one thing you want to leave the folks with that, like, is there still time to get something out there? Is it, what's the one thing you'd leave with?
Well, I tell you, there's a lot of stuff still coming. I can't believe how many things are still happening to get nitrogen applied today. A lot of people are really looking at this, the melted urea, just to go on this last 1 or 2 rounds through the pivot to get is just so fast getting into the plant. I think that's from an initial standpoint, from the next 30 to 60 days. I think going longer term than that, certainly the biological, we know where that's going. We know that industry's going, but I think that the future is going to be probably the nutrient density of our products, the quality of our products that are being grown out there. And I think that's, from a food system standpoint and even right down into the, the cattle feeding, what ingredients can we bring to the table through our silage or through the grain itself. And then, human grade wheat and things like that. We're doing some work with some of the wheat industry people for wheat quality, for grain quality, for doughability and things like that. And so we see that kind of coming. And I think we're kind of leading that thing. At least I hope we are with where we're going with that, testing that. What can we do to enhance those kind of things to kind of bring us into the next level of the ag industry, if you will? I'd be thinking about food.
I love it. So the one thing, there's about 6, but the one thing there is how do we, it's hard, right? Because there's a lot of different things, and I get it. But to me, there's, when you talk about nutrient density, right? Like when you talk about different foods that are out there, quality of, Brett, you were talking about nitrogen management. We talk about the state of Nebraska, right? High nitrate levels in the water. I say the one thing, right? But there's all these little things that are all tied together. And if we could start kind of hitting on some of those things together as an industry, we're going to get better for sure. Brett, same thing. One thing you'd leave folks with.
Tie yourself to companies that are innovative and they're always looking to improve what they're doing. That makes a difference in your field. That's it.
I love it.
All it has to be.
I think, Chad, if I could just one more thing on Brett's on behalf, I think that when we had that initial meeting, we have such a short growing season out here in western Nebraska and eastern Wyoming that it was really kind of a mission from Marcus and Brett and really, I mean, if I could mention other people, Dan Fitz is saying, who's a Total Acres guy, Dan is, and what can we do to speed up that process with such a short growing season? How can we enhance that and push that crop as fast as we can? And still keep the yields and keep the plant health and things like that. But we really need to push this thing along to get to the yields that to be consistently with what Brett's getting out here in the industry. We're so much shorter than 290 bushel average yields out here in western Nebraska, eastern Wyoming. And so we really need to just kind of take that next step to try to push that plant along. And I think that's one of the things that Brett's has been really pushing. That's the one thing I would say that he's looking forward to is where can we take that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pump up the tires of Total Acre a little bit here. I mean, that group of growers that are built differently, and I'm not knocking on others, right? But this group that really kind of pushes the envelope, and I'll just kind of make it a commercial for Total Acre here for a second, right? Because Brian Maddox does some crazy, amazing things with vendors. And then, out of the members that we have here, there's only, I don't know, Brett, you know the number. It's like 140 growers, 160 growers or less that are allowed to be able to be put in front of a vendor to be able to take trial protocols and put them in real fields.
Sure.
It's a very small number in the grand scheme of things. But if you think of that group, and not to pump your tires up, Brett, but, you and Dan, that group is the elite, right? And they're willing to do about anything to be able to kind of push the envelope. And I think that is a key to Total Acre. Total Acre does some really cool stuff, but it is all about the growers. And I think if my thing is if you don't understand that, like Brett, would you say, don't bother coming, right?
Yep.
If you don't want to work, don't come.
Yeah. It's the elite Pioneer, which who I sell for, of course, and Hula would agree, is the best. Let's get that plug out there.
Right.
But they call it the yield pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And the top growers are the NCGA type people. And I'm surrounded by those people out here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of the challenges we face with our pHs and our soil conditions, our short growing season, we have to concentrate on these things more than a eastern Nebraska, western or Iowa, Illinois farmer. We can't put seed out in nice, big, black, beautiful soil and make it grow. Ours is white, ugly, and cold. So we have to do unique things to make it work. We always have to be on the edge. And the one thing that YMS does, Marcus Dennis made the greatest statement. You should have him do your guys' commercial, because he said, if you just do Total Acre for the software alone, it's more than worth it. And my son we're sitting on his desk right now, and his computer's full of YMS tissue samples that he's gotten back. And we go by the book, because we need to know. We need eyes in the field. We need eyes on the roots. We need eyes on what the plant's doing that we can't see. YMS Total Acre helps us do that.
Well, I hope that this doesn't come across as arrogant, but I hope it shows as confidence and passion, right? Because ultimately that's what it's about. And I think it's our industry's responsibility to push the envelope with vendors that are not scared to be exposed. And I think Total Acre does a really good job of that, if I can pump our own tires up a little bit. If you want to sit behind the scenes, you can, right? If you want to wait till things evolve, you can. But sometimes you get left behind, right? Joana, so I'm going to give you the same question. The one thing, as you kind of talked through and have listened to some of the things that Bart and Brett have said, what's maybe one thing we missed, or one thing you'd leave folks with from a growth technology standpoint?
Oh my gosh, only one, Chad.
No, you only get one. You can't squeeze two or three in like Bart.
Oh, well, real quick, we didn't get to talk about this, but you can check a lot of the science out on growthtechllc.com. But we created a new molecule in farming. It's not just A plus B equals AB. It's A plus B equals C. And we had a third-party laboratory test that. And even Marcus was like, magic, and Marcus has been in this industry for decades. He's our lead agronomist, and he says this product, Nitromag, keeps even surprising him. And when we take it to science, like, we're just like, this is magic. So what I want to leave people with is the growth technologies, Nitromag, and however we evolve, it's going to outlive us all. This company is going to continue. And I'm so honored to be working with this company. And these guys are the hardest working guys. Marcus, our whole crew out there. I wish I could get everybody's name. It's like a family. But this is special, and it's going to outlive me. I will be gone. Growth technologies will still exist. So will Nitromag, and maybe a whole other menu of products. So to end, this is our Nitro Man. Put some muscle on your crops is our tagline. I want to leave people with that. Please check out our website, growthtechllc.com. We have all our contact information and science there. It's a wealth of information. But we're so honored to be on this podcast with you. Thank you to Total Acre and Chad. You've been great. You've been a great host. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I had to put my glasses on for a second because I was looking down at your logo, and I do believe my ladies, right? Brett, talk to Mama. We need a lady version of the Flex. Come on now.
We're
I mean,
actually working on it. We have it coming. It's coming.
I'm just telling you right now, I think that would look really good. I think that says Meyer Seeds on your shirt right there, doesn't it? Yeah. Brett, on the other side, you get the lady flexing on the other side, and you're set.
There we go.
All joking aside, you guys, I love the conversation. Thanks for making the time. I know you guys are busy as heck right now this time of year. If there's something we can help with down the line, let us know. But I love the story. I love what you guys are doing. Thanks for being on with us today.
Thank you.
Chad, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Take care. See you soon. And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in today to this episode of the Total Acre Podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed it, you liked the conversation, be sure to subscribe. You know the drill. Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Go give us a click, give us a like. Until next time, though, keep pushing forward. We hope that you found something unique, something powerful here that might help you unlock your farm's potential. We look forward to seeing you next week. Be safe. Talk more here soon on the next Total Acre Podcast.